Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the Norfolk Space Elevator, watching as teams of construction drones swarmed around the massive hull of the U.S. Gerald R. Ford. The sight of the legendary supercarrier suspended in space would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. Now, it represented humanity's most ambitious engineering project since the Mars colonies. The consortium representatives are here. Admiral, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his normally steady voice carrying a hint of tension. Chen turned to face the delegation of alien diplomats approaching across the deck. The Skitheri ambassador's crystalline exoskeleton caught the starlight, while his Mercurian counterpart's environmental suit hummed softly. Both regarded the suspended carrier with what Chen had learned to recognize as barely concealed disdain. "This is pure folly," Ambassador Siddle of the Skitheri clicked, his translator rendering the sounds into crisp English. "Supercarriers are relics of planetary warfare. They cannot be adapted for faster-than-light travel. The energy requirements alone." "With all due respect, Ambassador," Chen interrupted, "humanity has a long history of achieving the impossible by refusing to accept arbitrary limitations." The Mercurian ambassador, Vale, emanated patterns of bioluminescence that indicated skepticism. "The laws of physics are not arbitrary limitations, Admiral. The mass of your vessels exceeds all known parameters for successful FTL transition. Even our most advanced drive systems cannot accommodate such mass using conventional methods," Chen finished. "We're aware of the traditional constraints. That's why we're not using conventional methods." She gestured to the holographic display materializing between them. Complex equations and engineering schematics filled the air, highlighting the revolutionary fusion of human naval architecture and quantum mechanics that Dr. Patel's team had developed. "You're proposing to use the carrier's own mass as part of the drive system." Stell's translator couldn't quite capture the mix of shock and disbelief in his clicks. "The energy feedback alone would tear the ship apart." "That's what they said about breaking the sound barrier," Chen smiled, "and about achieving powered flight in the first place. Humanity has a habit of proving our critics wrong." The display shifted to show the modified reactor core, where traditional nuclear propulsion had been augmented with quantum field generators. Dr. Patel's breakthrough had come from studying ancient Earth seafaring vessels, specifically how they used the very water they displaced to aid their movement. "We're not fighting against the mass energy limitations," Chen explained. "We're working with them. The supercarrier's mass creates a quantum displacement effect that, when properly channeled, actually helps generate the warp field." Vale's bioluminescence shifted to patterns indicating deep concern. "This is unprecedented, untested. The risks have been thoroughly calculated and accounted for," Chen assured them. "We've run over 10,000 simulations. The quantum displacement effect is stable. We're not just theorizing here. We've already achieved successful small-scale tests." She brought up footage of the prototype tests, showing a modified destroyer achieving FTL transition using the new system. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the vessel disappeared in a flash of controlled quantum displacement, reappearing exactly as calculated 50 light-years away. "Impossible," Stahl whispered, his crystalline structure vibrating with agitation. "That's not the first time we've heard that word," Chen said. "It was impossible for humans to split the atom, to reach the moon, to create stable fusion reactors. Yet here we are. The Gerald R. Ford will make her first FTL jump in 6 months, and she won't be alone. We're retrofitting the entire carrier fleet." The implications weren't lost on the ambassadors. Humanity wasn't just joining the galactic community. They were about to revolutionize it. Their obsolete supercarriers would soon become the largest FTL-capable vessels in known space. "The consortium will need to discuss this development," Vale said carefully. "This technology, it changes everything we thought we knew about FTL travel." "That's what we do," Chen replied, turning back to watch the construction drones at work. "We change things. We push boundaries. We achieve the impossible." As the alien diplomats departed, Chen allowed herself a small smile. The real work was just beginning, but humanity had already accomplished something remarkable. They'd made the impossible seem inevitable. Dr. Petal joined her at the window, his dark eyes reflecting the sparkle of welding arcs against the carrier's hull. They still don't understand how we did it, do they? No, Chen chuckled. They're too focused on why it shouldn't work to see why it does. They've spent so long accepting limitations that they've forgotten how to break them. Human stupidity or human genius? Patel asked, referencing their long-running debate about humanity's greatest asset. Chen watched as another section of quantum field generators was carefully maneuvered into place. Both, probably. We're just stupid enough to try the impossible, and just genius enough to make it work. The Gerald R. Ford hung against the star-filled backdrop, its massive form a testament to human determination. Soon it would carry that determination to the stars, breaking not just the light barrier, but every preconception about what was possible. The quantum lab deep within the Norfolk Space Elevator Complex hummed with energy as Dr. Patel reviewed the latest test results. Holographic displays showed the complex interactions between the carrier's mass and the quantum displacement field, patterns that supposedly couldn't exist according to conventional physics. They said we were crazy, Lieutenant John commented, adjusting the field harmonics. Trying to use a ship's mass against space-time itself, it violated every principle of FTL theory. Patel smiled, remembering the skepticism they'd faced from Earth's own scientific community. Conventional FTL theory was developed by species that evolved with access to high-energy exotic matter. They never had to think differently. The displays shifted, showing the unique properties they'd discovered. Humanity's isolation from traditional FTL resources had forced them to find another way. Instead of fighting against a vessel's mass like conventional drives, they'd found a way to use it, turning what everyone else saw as a limitation into an advantage. Admiral Chen's on her way down, Rodriguez announced, entering the lab. The consortium's demanding proof that this won't tear a hole in space-time. They're still thinking in old paradigms, Patel said, bringing up the mathematical models. They see mass as an obstacle to overcome. We see it as a tool to use. The lab door hissed open as Admiral Chen entered, accompanied by Dr. Elena Santos, Earth's leading quantum physicist. Santos had been skeptical of the project initially, but the data had convinced her. "Show me what you've got," Chen said, her eyes scanning the displays. "The consortium's threatening to embargo Earth if we proceed without their approval." Patel nodded to Zhang, who initiated the latest simulation. The holographic display filled with swirling quantum fields, showing how the carrier's massive bulk actually helped stabilize the warp bubble instead of fighting against it. "It's like surfing," Santos explained to Chen. "Traditional FTL tries to punch through space-time. We're riding it, using the ship's own mass to create a quantum wave we can surf across light years." The simulation showed the Gerald R. Ford's planned first jump. The massive carrier didn't fight against physics. It worked with them, creating a quantum displacement that carried it through space like a surfer riding a wave. "The bigger the ship, the more stable the effect," Patel added. "That's why it works better with carriers than smaller vessels. The consortium's ships could never achieve this because they're too small, too optimized for traditional FTL." Chen watched the simulation complete successfully, then turned to Santos. "You've verified the math." "Multiple times," Santos confirmed. "It's revolutionary, but it's sound. They're not breaking physics. They're just using them in a way no one else thought to try." A warning klaxon suddenly blared through the lab. Zhang's hands flew across the controls as one of their test units showed signs of unexpected quantum fluctuation. "Containment field is destabilizing," he reported tensely. "The field harmonics are out of alignment." Patel rushed to the controls, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The consortium was right about one thing. The energy feedback is dangerous if not properly controlled. The test unit's quantum field began to collapse, threatening to release enough energy to vaporize the lab. Chen moved to order an evacuation, but Patel held up a hand. "Wait," he said, making minute adjustments to the field parameters. "Watch this." Instead of fighting the destabilization, he guided it, using the same principles they'd developed for the carrier project. The excess energy folded back on itself, creating a self-stabilizing loop that actually strengthened the containment field. "My God," Santos whispered as the reading stabilized. "You're not just using this for propulsion, are you? This could revolutionize everything from power generation to planetary defense." Chen's eyes narrowed as she grasped the implications. "How long have you known about this secondary application?" "We suspected from the beginning," Patel admitted. "The same principles that let us surf quantum waves for FTL travel can be applied to any large-scale energy manipulation. The carriers aren't just going to be ships. They're going to be mobile power plants, research stations, and defensive platforms all in one." "No wonder the consortium's worried," Rodriguez muttered. "This changes the balance of power in the galaxy." Chen studied the now stable test unit, her expression thoughtful. "They're not worried about us breaking physics. They're worried about us breaking their monopoly on space travel." "It gets better," Zhang added, pulling up another set of readings. "The quantum displacement effect scales exponentially with mass. The Gerald R. Ford won't just match their FTL capabilities. It'll exceed them. We estimate it could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months." The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity wasn't just joining the galactic community. They were about to leapfrog over centuries of established technology with one innovative breakthrough. "Keep running tests," Chen ordered. "I want triple redundancy on every system. When we make our first jump, it needs to be perfect. We won't get a second chance to prove ourselves." As the team returned to work, Patel caught Chen's arm. "Admiral, there's something else you should see." He brought up one final simulation, showing how the quantum displacement effect interacted with natural phenomena. "We think we can use solar masses to amplify the effect," he explained. "Using the same principles that make the carriers work, we could potentially create stable wormholes using stars as power sources." Chen's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. Humanity wasn't just changing the rules of space travel, they were about to rewrite them entirely. "Keep that one quiet for now," she ordered. "Let's get the carriers working first, one impossible achievement at a time." The lab hummed with renewed activity as the team returned to their work, each of them aware that they were part of something unprecedented. They weren't just breaking physical laws. They were revealing new ones that had always existed, waiting for someone stubborn enough to find them. The bridge of the U.S. Gerald R. Ford hummed with tension as Captain Maya Harrison studied the final pre-jump checklist. After 18 months of retrofitting, the massive carrier was ready for its first FTL test. Through the bridge's panoramic windows, Earth hummed like a blue jewel against the void, a reminder of everything at stake. "All departments report ready," Commander Jackson announced from his station. "Quantum displacement field is stable and building to jump threshold." Harrison nodded, feeling the subtle vibration of the new drive systems through the deck plates. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, though she could see the nervous energy in their movements. They'd trained for months in simulators, but this was different. This was real. "Message from Norfolk Control," Lieutenant Park reported. "Admiral Chen is requesting final confirmation for jump initiation." Before Harrison could respond, another alert flashed across the tactical display. "Multiple contacts detected," Jackson reported, his voice tightening. 7 consortium vessels just transitioned into near-Earth space. They're on an intercept course. Harrison's jaw clenched. The consortium had moved faster than expected, trying to stop the test before it could begin. On the main display, the alien vessels appeared as sleek, predatory shapes against the star field. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Park announced, demanding we power down our drive systems immediately. "Admiral Chen is ordering us to proceed as planned," Jackson added. "She says," he smiled slightly, "she says to show them what humanity can do." Harrison took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Send acknowledgement to Norfolk Control. Begin jump sequence. The bridge erupted into activity as the crew initiated the complex series of operations that would either make history or prove the consortium right about human hubris. The quantum displacement field began to build around the massive carrier, creating effects that made conventional sensors go haywire. Consortium vessels are launching warning shots, Jackson reported calmly. High-energy plasma bursts, deliberately missing us by 2 kilometers. Let them waste their energy, Harrison replied. How long until jump threshold? 90 seconds, Dr. Patel's voice came through from engineering. The quantum field is responding exactly as predicted. Mass energy conversion is optimal. The consortium ships drew closer, their weapons charging for more than warning shots now. Harrison knew they wouldn't actually fire. The diplomatic fallout would be catastrophic, but they were hoping to intimidate the humans into standing down. 60 seconds to threshold, Patel announced. Field harmonics are perfect. The mass displacement effect is... He paused. It's exceeding our predictions. We're getting nearly 15% more efficiency than in simulations. The carrier's massive hull began to resonate with the building energy, a deep throning that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. Outside, space itself appeared to bend and twist as the quantum displacement field warped the fabric of space-time. Consortium vessels are demanding we abort, Park reported. They're claiming our field effects are interfering with their systems. Harrison allowed herself a small smile. Of course their systems were being affected. They'd never seen anything like this before. No one had. 30 seconds, Patel called out. Primary field generators are at maximum output. Secondary systems engaging. Now, the vibration intensified as the secondary quantum generators came online, channeling the carrier's enormous mass into the displacement field. Warning indicators flashed across multiple stations as the ship's conventional sensors struggled to cope with the unprecedented conditions. 15 seconds, Patel continued. Field stability at 98%. Mass energy conversion nominal. We're going to do it, Captain. Harrison gripped the arms of her command chair, watching as the star field began to distort around them. All hands, brace for FTL transition. This is what we've trained for. This is what we're going to do. 10 seconds. 9. 8. The consortium vessels were backing away now, their sensors undoubtedly overwhelmed by the quantum effects radiating from the carrier. 7. 6. 5. Harrison thought of all the doubters, all the aliens and humans alike who'd said this was impossible. They were about to prove them all wrong. 4, 3, 2. Jump, Harrison commanded, her voice steady and clear. Reality twisted, stretched, and snapped. For a fraction of a second that felt like eternity, the Gerald R. Ford existed everywhere and nowhere, riding its own mass through quantum space in a way that defied conventional physics. Then, with a flash that briefly outshone the stars themselves, the carrier reappeared exactly at its targeted coordinates, 50 light-years from Earth. The bridge was silent for a moment as the crew processed what they'd just accomplished. Position confirmed, Jackson reported, his professional demeanor cracking slightly with excitement. We're exactly where we planned to be. All systems nominal. The jump was perfect. Cheers erupted across the bridge as the magnitude of their achievement sank in. They'd done it. Humanity had not only mastered FTL travel, but had done it in a way that rewrote the rules of what was possible. Message incoming from Earth, Park announced, grinning. Admiral Chen says, well done. You just changed the galaxy. Harrison looked out at the unfamiliar star field, knowing that this was just the beginning. They hadn't just proven that carriers could achieve FTL travel. They'd proven that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to think differently, to see possibilities where others saw only limitations. Send word to Earth, she ordered. The Gerald R. Ford has arrived safely at its destination. The impossible has become possible. We're ready to begin the next phase of testing. As her crew continued their celebrations while maintaining professional efficiency, Harrison allowed herself to wonder what the consortium ship's crews were thinking now. They'd just witnessed something their scientists had declared impossible, achieved by a species they'd considered primitive. It wouldn't be the last time humanity would surprise them. 3 months after the Gerald R. Ford's historic first jump, Admiral Chen found herself standing before the Galactic Council on Centauri Prime. The circular chamber was filled with representatives from 200 spacefaring civilizations, most of whom had spent the last quarter-hour listing reasons why humanity's quantum displacement drive should be banned. The drive creates ripples in space-time, the Arxian delegate insisted, their tentacles writhing with agitation. Each jump leaves quantum distortions that interfere with traditional FTL navigation. That's not a flaw, Chen responded calmly. It's an indicator of a more efficient approach to FTL travel, one that could benefit all species if you'd let us share the technology. Before the council could respond, emergency alerts blared throughout the chamber. Holographic displays materialized, showing a massive disturbance in the galaxy's central transport nexus, the hub through which most interstellar trade flowed. The Helios nexus is destabilizing, the Scathari ambassador announced, his crystalline form vibrating with alarm. The quantum fluctuations we've been detecting, they're not from your ships. Something far worse is happening. The displays showed the nexus point where thousands of traditional FTL lanes converge. The fabric of space itself was beginning to tear, threatening to create a cascade failure that could sever major trade routes across the galaxy. The nexus was never designed to handle this much traditional FTL traffic, Dr. Paddle explained, stepping forward from the human delegation. The cumulative effect of millions of ships forcing their way through space-time, it's created a quantum stress fracture. Impossible, the Mercurian representative flashed. Our FTL technology has been stable for millennia. Stable on a small scale, Paddle corrected. But you've been brute-forcing your way through space for too long. The nexus point is like a wall that's been hit by too many battering rams. It's finally starting to crack. Chen watched the data streams, her mind racing. The Gerald R. Ford is 3 light-years out. We can have her at the nexus point in 10 minutes. You want to send one of your quantum abominations into an already destabilized region. The Arxian delegate's translation came through as nearly a shriek. It would accelerate the collapse. No, Patel interjected. Our quantum displacement drive doesn't fight against space-time. It works with it. The carrier's mass could actually help stabilize the fracture, using the same principles that make our FTL travel possible. The council chamber erupted in argument, but Chen was already sending the orders. On the bridge of the Gerald R. Ford, Captain Harrison received the transmission and immediately began preparations for the most dangerous jump of their careers. Engineering reports ready, Commander Jackson reported. But Dr. Santos says this is well beyond anything we've simulated. Using the quantum displacement field to seal a rupture in space-time is exactly the kind of impossible thing we do best. Harrison finished. Take us in. The carrier materialized near the nexus point, its massive bulk tiny against the scale of the spatial distortion. The rupture was visible even to the naked eye now, a writhing tear in the fabric of reality that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Multiple consortium ships in the area, Jackson reported. They're trying to evacuate the trade vessels, but the distortion is affecting their FTL drives. They can't get close enough. Harrison studied the tactical display, noting how the quantum displacement field from their own drive was actually calming the spatial distortions in their immediate vicinity. We're not just going to seal the rupture, she realized. We're going to show them why humanity's approach to space travel is the future. Engineering reports quantum displacement field at maximum power, Jackson announced. Dr. Santos says, she says we're going to surf the wave. The Gerald R. Ford moved closer to the rupture, its quantum field extending like a stabilizing hand pressed against the fabric of space. The carrier's massive bulk, converted into quantum energy through Patel's revolutionary drive, created a dampening effect that began to smooth out the spatial distortions. "It's working," Santos reported from engineering. "The carrier's mass is actually helping to redistribute the quantum stress. The rupture is beginning to seal itself." In the council chamber, the alien representatives watched in stunned silence as humanity's primitive solution accomplished what their advanced technology could not. The Gerald R. Ford wasn't fighting against the laws of physics. It was working with them, using principles that had been there all along, waiting to be discovered by someone willing to think differently. "The Nexus is stabilizing," Harrison reported back to Earth. "But there's more. We're detecting similar stress fractures forming at other major FTL intersections. The entire galactic transportation network is built on fundamentally flawed principles." Chen turned to face the council. "You've spent millennia forcing your way through space, never questioning if there might be a better way. We can help you transition to quantum displacement technology, or you can watch your trade networks collapse one by one." The chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just developed a new form of space travel. They'd discovered a fundamental truth about the nature of spacetime itself, one that the older races had missed in their rush to conquer the stars. "We'll need to retrofit every major vessel in the galaxy," Patil added, "and build new ships specifically designed to work with space rather than against it. It will take decades, but it's either that or watch the FTL lanes tear themselves apart." "And I assume," the Scatheri ambassador clicked dryly, "that Earth's shipyards are ready to begin production immediately." Chen smiled. "As a matter of fact, we are. We've been preparing for this moment since we first understood what our discovery really meant. The question is, are you ready to admit that humanity might have something to teach you?" The council's response was interrupted by another alert. More ruptures were forming, and this time, only humanity's quantum displacement carriers could reach them in time. The galaxy's future now depended on the very technology they had tried to ban. 5 years after the Helios Nexus crisis, Admiral Chen stood in the observation dome of humanity's first deep space shipyard, watching as another converted supercarrier took shape against the backdrop of stars. The U.S. Nautilus would be the 100th vessel equipped with quantum displacement drive technology, but it was far from the last. Below the massive construction facility, ships from dozens of alien civilizations waited their turn for retrofitting. "The Arctians finally admitted it," Dr. Patil said, joining her at the window. "Their traditional FTL network would have collapsed completely within a decade. We didn't just save galactic commerce, we saved their entire civilization." Chen nodded, remembering the chaos of those first few months after the crisis. The Gerald R. Ford and her sister ships had worked tirelessly, stabilizing rupture after rupture, while humanity rushed to share their technology with former rivals who had suddenly become desperate allies. "Latest report from the consortium research team," Dr. Santos announced, walking up with a holographic display. "They finally figured out why their traditional FTL systems were doomed to fail. Turns out, forcing your way through space-time creates microscopic stress points that accumulate over centuries. They never notice because they were looking for immediate effects, not long-term damage." "Typical," Patel chuckled. "They were so focused on controlling space that they never thought to work with it. Sometimes the best solutions come from working with natural principles instead of against them." The display showed the newly established quantum displacement lanes, vast networks of stable FTL corridors that used the natural mass of stars and planets to strengthen rather than weaken the fabric of space. Humanity's primitive solution had transformed galactic travel into something safer, more efficient, and fundamentally sustainable. Message from the Galactic Council. Lieutenant Rodriguez called from his station. "They've unanimously approved the establishment of the Quantum Navigation Authority," and he grinned. "They want Earth to lead it." Chen raised an eyebrow. "The same council that tried to ban our technology 5 years ago now wants us to oversee all galactic navigation. They've learned what we've known all along." Captain Harrison's voice came from behind them. The Gerald R. Ford's commander had become something of a legend after her ship's role in the crisis. Sometimes the best way forward is to admit you don't have all the answers. Through the dome, they could see one of the consortium's sleek vessels approaching the shipyard. Its once proud hull now marked with stress fractures from centuries of forcing its way through space. It would leave with quantum displacement technology that would give it new life and new purpose. We're receiving more than just ships for retrofitting, Santos noted, pulling up another report. Every major scientific institution in the galaxy wants to establish research partnerships with Earth. They're finally realizing that different perspectives have value. Different perspectives are essential, Patel corrected. The universe is too vast and complex for any one approach to be sufficient. The consortium had technology, but we had innovation. They had experience, but we had determination. Now we all have a chance to learn from each other. A flash of light announced another quantum displacement arrival. This time, a massive Skatheri colony ship, its crystalline structure gleaming in the starlight. It was the first of its kind, built from the ground up using human principles combined with alien materials and expertise. Did you ever imagine this? Harrison asked Chen, gesturing at the bustling shipyard. When we first started the carrier conversion project, did you think it would lead to all this? Chen watched as construction drones swarmed around multiple vessels, each representing a fusion of human ingenuity and alien technology. I knew we'd succeed, she said finally. I didn't know we'd transform the galaxy in the process. That's humanity's gift, Patel smiled. We don't just solve problems. We find better ways to do things, ways that no one else thought to try because they were too focused on what they thought was impossible. The quantum displacement field from another arriving ship briefly distorted the view, its ripples in space-time now a common and welcome sight throughout the galaxy. What had once been seen as a dangerous anomaly was now recognized as the signature of a more enlightened approach to space travel. The Council is asking about Phase 2, Rodriguez reported. They want to know when we can begin implementing the Stellar Nexus network. Chen smiled, remembering how that same council had once dismissed humanity as upstart primitives. Now they were eager to embrace the next evolution of human innovation, using the massive stars themselves to create stable, permanent FTL corridors throughout the galaxy. Tell them we're ready when they are, she replied. And remind them that this is just the beginning. Humanity didn't come to the stars to follow someone else's rules. We came to show what's possible when you dare to break them. As if to emphasize her point, the Nautilus's quantum displacement drive activated for the first time, its massive hull briefly warping reality before settling into a stable field. Another impossibility made possible by human determination and ingenuity. You know what the best part is? Harrison mused, watching the new carrier prepare for its first test jump. We're still learning, still improving. Every ship we convert teaches us something new about quantum mechanics. Every problem we solve opens up new possibilities. That's the real legacy, Chen agreed. Not just the technology, but the mindset that created it. The willingness to question assumptions, to try the impossible, to find new ways forward. The shipyard hummed with activity as vessels from across the galaxy came together, each contributing to a future that none of them could have imagined alone. Humanity had done more than prove themselves to the galactic community. They had shown that the universe still held mysteries waiting to be unraveled by those brave enough to think differently. And somewhere out there, beyond the reach of current technology, new challenges waited, new impossibilities to overcome, new rules to break. Humanity was ready.